Hi, everyone. I'm Jason,
Mateen.
and welcome to the Elevated Convo podcast. On this podcast, we explore spiritual solutions to contemporary problems. Mateen and I host events in the LA area, and we bring spiritual quotes from different religions, backgrounds to these events. We have wide-ranging discussions on sort of elevated conversations, deepened topics, the big questions in life. And we believe there's a lot of wisdom in these old faith traditions. We think that people our age often neglect them, but we believe there's a lot to be learned from these traditions. So each week we pull in a listener question and we tackle it. We examine some different beliefs, and we try to all better ourselves together as a community. And this question this week comes from Brianna. Matty, do you want to read the question?
Sure. This again from Brianna. Hi, Mateen and Jason. This year I've been focused on personal growth, especially in areas like health and faith. I've noticed that often social plans with my friends revolve around things that conflict with my goals, like drinking or being out late. It's hard for me to say no once I'm in those situations. So I've started avoiding them altogether by canceling or declining plans. I really value my friendships, but wonder if it's possible to stay close when our lifestyles and values feel so different. I would love to hear your thoughts on navigating that tension, especially when it comes to alcohol, relationships, and staying aligned with your values. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Brianna, for writing in. I think this is something that a lot of people deal with, right? It can be on the specific topics you mentioned, as far as alcohol, relationships, etc. But in general, I think it's very normal for people to feel conflict with their friend group. Doesn't have to always be overt. It can be sort of subtle, small things. Your friend does something and you're kind of confused. Why are they doing that? I didn't know that about them, etc. So you're certainly not alone in feeling this way. And I would say specifically to the things you mentioned, things are shifting among people, in this age range. I've got some stats. The NIH sponsors a survey. It's called Monitoring the Future. And they do this survey on substance use, alcohol use, et cetera. They've found that drug use is trending downwards among young people. And it's actually below pre-pandemic levels. And also the Department of Health and Human Services in the US does a similar survey, and they see the same trends. They note that drinking among young people is at record low levels. So I guess I would start by saying, you are probably not alone in this. I mean, certainly not alone, broadly speaking, but also in your friend group. I think a lot of people are beginning to sort of re-examine their habits in a new light. And the data certainly shows that a lot of people are sort of rethinking these habits.
Yeah, I think the question I would start with, really, Brianna, and to many others that are listening, is what kind of person do you want to be right now? What we've noticed is, even for ourselves, including myself and Jason, as our vision broadens, as we get older, as we realize what our tastes are, what our hobbies are, we realize there's some things that we didn't enjoy that we once did when we were younger. And that's okay. That's part of life. That's part of change. And that's part of growing. A lot of times, our friends react in certain ways because it's the expectation that they have on you, not so much what they want you to feel or the choices you actually have in your own life. It's the expectations they put on top of you that they're sort of like aligned with. That's why many people, when you're talking to them, outside, they'll be like, that you haven't seen in a while, they'll be like, wow, you've changed. You're like, no, I haven't changed. This is just who I always was. Just society and environments has changed around me. I think as your vision broadens, you start caring for your own soul. At the end of the day, the soul plays a role, and you realize what's in my best interest. And, there's ways to still hang out with these individuals. Not to say you need to cut them out of your life, absolutely not, but you can find ways to have alternatives. You can go on a hike with them. You can go to the bar with them and just engage in different ways. Go to an arcade bar, do something else that allows you to still enjoy those moments with those friends and those relationships, keep them, foster them. And if they don't align, then, it may be time to move on.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, getting older and deciding you don't want to do something anymore. Your tastes have changed. Like by the time when we're taping this, it's getting close to Halloween. And I was just telling a friend that like back in the day, of course I could eat endless candy when I was really young, and there was like, there's like a 1 year or 2 year overlap between when I loved eating endless candy and when I actually had enough money to buy candy for myself, and like now, like I recognize that it's bad for me. I feel terrible, like maybe my body used to be able to process it and it no longer can. And that's kind of a, silly example, but I think it probably does extend, to other habits as well. My friends, like they, start drinking in high school or college, but then it starts catching up with them and they're like, oh crap, like my liver cannot process, it in the same way. And I need to really cut back. They get a bad hangover. I'm never drinking again type thing. But I think that's natural, right? As we grow older, to your point, we, initially are just sort of following what happens around us. We're young, we're susceptible to peer pressure. That's normal. And we just don't have a lot of experience. So we trust others. We see what others are doing and we follow that. But over time, we gain experience and we learn to trust ourselves, our judgment, listen to our bodies, etc. And I think it's actually quite a positive change that happens for most people. So that's another thing that we can maybe explore here is kind of reframing it, instead of like, oh, I'm not doing what my friends want me to do and I feel disconnected. Instead, perhaps there's an empowerment piece to it. Hey, like I am making this decision for myself. I was just talking to a friend. I have a close friend and she's decided to stop drinking. She recognizes that it's tough socially for her, but also she just can't deny what her body's telling her anymore. She sleeps so much better and her sleep is better, which means she feels better the next day. She gets more done. Like for her anyway, there's this chain reaction. There's this knock-on effect of it, unlocks all these things. So even though it's, a little bit more difficult for her and she had to have some conversation with some friends when she decided to stop drinking, it's been a positive change in her life. And I think that agency piece, reframing it, has been part of that for her.
Yeah, and that's really important. I think for me to answer this question really comes down to the clarity in your own life. What you want, and I said that question earlier, but it comes down to like self-reflection and having yourself have no guilt. Because a lot of times, including myself, when I say no to friends and I want to do something and they, in my back of my mind, I'm saying, oh man, they probably are not going to invite me again, or they're going to talk bad about me and backbiting, another situation, when I'm not there. So you feel guilty, you feel like there's a pressure on you. But when you act with intention, when you have your goals in mind, like your friend, I want to stay healthier. I want to sleep better. I want to do better in my career. I need to get up early in the morning and I don't have time to be hungover. Then it makes a difference in your life. You speak with intention. There's a quote by Baha'u'llah, not directly related to all of this, but Baha'u'llah is the founding figure of the Baha'i faith. And he says, let deeds, not words, be your adorning. And this can play in a role in terms of who you are as a person and how you react to things. But I also think it plays in a great deal here. When your friends see you by not just your words, like, oh, I'm not coming out because I need to I need to sleep. But then you just go home and you just play Xbox all day or, hang out with people that you literally just said you weren't going to do.
Right.
But it's your deeds. If you actually do those things, if you say, I'm actually going to go sleep at night, and they make a difference, and then overall you're a much better person because you stay true to your intentions, then I really believe that's going to have a effect on your other friends and on the people around you. So it's very important to stay true to yourself at the end of all of this.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the Baha'i faith. There's a concept in the Baha'i faith. And quickly, for those that don't know, Mateen and I grew up Baha'i. It influences a lot of our perspectives that we share on this show. We, of course, bring in other perspectives, which we'll get to. I have some interesting quotes from the Bible and from Taoism. But the reason why I wanted to talk about the faith is because the Baha'i faith, there's this concept in the faith called independent investigation of the truth. And the idea is that it is up to the individual believer to investigate truth for themselves and come to their own conclusions to the best of their ability. Usually this is talked about in the faith in terms of religion. So one of the things that faith teaches is that we're not meant to blindly accept the religion of our society or our family. We're meant to come to our own conclusions. And that's true of the Baha'i faith. If you grew up a Baha'i, you're still asked to investigate for yourself. That's the usual context, but I think it applies here as well. I think that, just as we're called to not accept beliefs that are given to us in a religious context, we also should examine all the beliefs in our lives, the beliefs that, I don't know, like we get in Western society, drinking makes you cool, or drinking is a better way to make friends, all those sort of messages that sometimes we don't even realize they're there. They're so insidious in our culture and in our media. Those messages are implicit. If you go back and watch like the movies you watched growing up with a more critical eye, those like coming of age films set in high schools and college, like especially the older films from the 90s, like there is this implicit message that, drinking is cool, smoking is cool, whatever. And at the time when I was, so I'll speak for myself, when I was watching these movies growing up, I didn't, fully register these messages that were there, right? But they certainly had an impact on me and, affected my decision-making later on. I think that I came to a point where I started to sort of independently investigate the truth for myself. I started to, put aside my preconceived notions, and decide for myself, what habits are best for me, what's healthiest for me, and sort of test some hypotheses. Like I think people are worried, like, okay, if I stop drinking, people aren't going to want to hang out with me. If I, stop doing whatever, people aren't going to want to hang out with me. And I think, you might be surprised. You might be surprised that, those hypotheses may not be true. And I would encourage that independent investigation. Yeah.
Jason, just say no to drugs. Like,
yeah, just say no.
Just say no. It's that simple. And it's always like, that's like, I remember in like high school, there would be like this dare thing. I don't know if they had that, like just so
we had
easy.
Elementary school, like
who's smoking crack at elementary school? Like,
evidently
I don't know,
people
like
in my elementary school.
they're like pulling out the bag, take your pick, I think there's a clear difference between what we need to do here. An advice to Brianna is you can have association without imitation. There's a thing with social media. It seems to be association, but you must imitate. Everyone's doing the same thing. Everyone's taking the same pictures. Everyone is posting the same, areas of their body that they really think that everyone's going to get like the most amount of views. And it's the revolutionary makers. I really think like the reason why like individuals like Charlie,
Kirk.
No, not Charlie Kirk. Charlie D'Amelio, like ones on
Charlie
TikTok.
So
like
TikTok
and stuff like that, right? Like they started a new trend when TikTok came out. They started dancing. They started doing all these. That's so different.
I thought you were going somewhere completely different.
Yeah, completely different. I mean, we can even say that example. Like many individuals, like they stand out because they're not copying the rest. It's not monkey see, monkey do. It's like, let me try something completely new, and hopefully people will tag along because it's pretty cool. I think it comes down at your principles. Are you steadfast to your principles, your goals, right? You can, in the Baha'i faith, we believe that, all people are created noble. And so I can't come out and say that I'm only going to hang out with certain people because they fit my type of lifestyle. That's not fair, and that's not helpful for the unity of the humankind. And so my idea is that, like, we associate with all types of people. What people do in their homes and with themselves privately, with their friends, outside of my friend group, that's totally fine. But there are boundaries that be had there, but there's a set of principles, and it comes back to this idea of being steadfast, in your ways. You can still remind everyone and yourself that you can radiate the warmth. You can, there's light and things can happen. And there's joy and integrity in any environment, really. You can take any environment and make joy and integrity out of it. But at the end of the day, you're according to Brianna, these things that she's saying here is that, like, it's really bothering her. And she, like many others, must be feeling something like this. Any other thoughts?
Well, I mean, I like the point on sort of blazing your own trail and being revolutionary in some way, not following the trend. You can gain some influence, respect, by doing what's already been done, just sort of conforming. But I think you gain a lot more by being different, differentiating yourself. And you look at the people that are most famous in the history of the world, they all did that. I mean, the people with the most followers, in the history of humanity were all religious leaders, right? Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, countless others. And they all broke the norm. They gained a lot of notoriety, but then also a lot of followers for doing that. Speaking of Jesus, I have a quote here from Romans 12:2 in the New Testament. This is, Paul is writing this. He says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." I love bringing quotes in like this because, the Baha'i faith is fairly new. It's only about 180 something years old, but I mean, this is something that humanity has been dealing with for millennia. The quote I just read you was written 2,000 years ago. And, it's something that we are all struggling with continually throughout humanity. It sounds like it's addressed to Brianna, do not conform to the pattern of this world. That's exactly what Brianna is asking about. I guess it's just further evidence to Brianna that, you're not the only one dealing with this. There were ancient Christians and Romans that had the same issues.
Yeah. And it's really important, to say that, it's so easy to feel torn, to even feel lonely in this process. As you can see that there's decreased amounts of rates of drug use and alcohol use. And that means people are taking a step and they're doing something different about it. It may also be that companies are also making non-alcoholic beverages and the
I think
vibes
they're
are
doing
changing.
it as a response to the demand, right?
Right. But we don't know what's...
our beer sales are going down. We need to get something together quick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's something the cigarette companies still haven't learned. They're still doing the same thing and they pivot
changed. Now to vapes and whatever.
And stuff. Yeah, it's just
but even
more...
that's down. When I looked at the data, that is down, surprisingly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And so I wonder where these people are going. If they're not going to the clubs and the bars and the drinking scenes, where else? Is there picnics? I know we talk about there's these first Fridays that are happening in LA and stuff at the picnic, and there's big gatherings. People come and hang out, and it's not so much let's go and just get blacked out. So maybe if they do drink, it seems like more of a social sort of arena.
The events I go to in LA, there's, a lot of there's a thing tomorrow actually. And there's no alcohol being served, it's a singles event. It's to meet other single people and there's no alcohol. It's all non-alcoholic stuff. And there's a non-alcoholic brand that's sponsoring the event. So to answer your question, I think that people are still going to the same spaces they're, used to go to. They're just redefining maybe what it looks like to be in those spaces. And, I feel hopeful about that. I think that, as humanity matures in general, we might see more people sort of asking these questions. And I think the data certainly suggests that a lot of people are asking themselves these questions and not just sort of blindly kind of accepting, what used to be done in previous generations. Well, my dad drank, my mom drank, so I'm going to drink,
Today it's interesting. If people ask me or go out with a group of friends and they say, you haven't gotten anything to drink, at all, not even a sip. And the first thing they ask, is it a religious reason? And, I say yes, but at the same time, I want it to be my own thing. I want to say it's because I just don't want to.
Right.
And then sometimes when you don't answer that, they'll ask a second question. Are you an alcoholic? Why does it have to be those two extremes?
Right.
Why can it be the person where I just don't want it in my life because there's all these negative benefits to my health?
Yeah.
And it feels like, unfortunately, as people get older, they come to learn this. And now that science is coming out and agreeing and saying, yes, actually, even one wine per day is not even healthy. It used to be one wine, well, it's good for your heart and all this stuff. Now they're saying, no, forget that. So is science were they ignoring the truth? Was there not enough evidence?
Wishful thinking, maybe.
I don't know what it was, but it's just interesting to see. So I would taking a different step, I would say, and it goes back to what I previously mentioned, but, Brianna, redefine what friendship looks like. Redefine it, because what we've learned is that having friends doesn't mean having exactness or having your friends be exactly like you. That's just not how it is. You're not going to find it that way, especially if you want to keep a lot of these friendships alive from college and stuff like that. So, keep friendships are shifting, constantly shifting. You can, have these people in your life, super close to you, and there's people that are further away from you. Some people live, in different, just like they live in other states and in different countries. Just because you're your friends doesn't need to have to be your next door neighbors,
Yeah.
So really it's like changing a shift of what you want to do. And then the people that want to be in your life will be in your life regardless. And that's what I find in the truest of friendships. If I do something that I feel is hurting my friendship, then maybe that person is not the right person for you.
Sure.
Right. If they are really there, just like as you are, if your friend comes and says to you, hey, for my health, I don't want to stay out late at night. I want to go to bed early. And I say, oh, man, what the heck? What is going on here? Then maybe we're just not bond to be friends with each other. And so it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, but it's the truth that we need to sort of center our lives around.
Yeah. I feel like there's two sort of components to this. There's, the piece, starting with yourself, right? Like, internally, how are you going to set your intention and decide, what you'd like to do? That sort of touches on the independent investigation, just start by questioning everything and say, okay, what is it that I want? What standards do I want to follow? And then after that, kind of to what you were alluding to, is your environment, right? Like kind of setting yourself up for success, because you can be very self-assured and decide, okay, I'm going to, do these things. But if your environment is, filled with, like, for example, Brianna's example, drinking, if she decides that she wants to drink less or not at all, whatever it may be, and she, all her friends are drinkers, and whenever they hang out, they're going to a bar, it's going to be very hard for her, like there's two components to it, and you have to, I think, use both of them. There's a beautiful quote from Taoism I like to share from Lao Tzu: care about what other people think, and you will always be their prisoner. Once again, this quote is
facts. Period.
I'm sure he said that when he wrote it. This quote is incredibly old. This is from an ancient Chinese civilization, and yet he's touching at the same truth that we're speaking about, that Brianna's searching for. It's so fundamental to the human experience, and that to me really comes back to the starting with yourself piece. Recognizing that the judgment of others is not a good enough reason for you to do something that you deem harmful to yourself, that you're trying to do less of, whatever it may be. That I think is a great place to sort of anchor yourself. And then after that, you go to your environment, you start thinking about, how am I going to approach my hangouts with my friends, etc.
Yeah, there's a quote from Baha'u'llah that says, "Bring thyself to account each day." And I think of this because, every morning and every evening when I go to bed, I try to make myself a bit of a better person. And I look back at some of my friendships as well and say, does this align with my goals? And so, Brianna, you mentioned something here, and you said, I would, love to hear our thoughts regarding not just, alcoholism and relationships, but staying aligned with our values.
Right.
And so it's coming back to it and say, you went to a party, you went to some weekend trip, and you come back and say, did that align with my values? Coming back to that question of, is this what kind of person do I want to be right now? And that's basically going back to the quote and saying, does this align with what I have? And really sitting with yourself, maybe praying, maybe meditating, manifesting. We've done an episode on that. And so really figuring out where you want to be in life, because it's so easy, especially if we're not true to ourselves. It's like from Aladdin, the monkey that has Abu sees the gold, right? They tell him 1,000 times, do not touch the gold, don't do it. And he sees this thing and he has to touch it, and then suddenly melts. It's that just
the Cave of Wonders.
That shows just humanity in general. We are so easily distracted from our goals. And so we all need diversity, and difference of thought makes us stronger as a world, as a
I agree.
people of Earth.
I think that's not wise to cut someone out completely. Just because you have a friend that I don't drink. I have plenty of friends that drink, and it's fine. It's completely fine.
Right.
I can't really think of any time in recent history where it's been an issue for any of us.
Do you ever tell them though? Do you ever say?
Yeah.
Do you ever change the subject and say, "Hey, guys, instead of going out like you guys normally do, can we go do something else? Have you ever done that?
Yeah, sometimes. But also like, I think it's fun to go, like if the music is good, I like to dance. Like, I don't mind, if everyone else is
dance?
drunk. Yeah. Yeah. People, I've been out, dancing. I was just telling a friend this, I've been out dancing and like I can tell by the way they're like talking to me. They're like, you good? Like they think that I'm super drunk, but I'm just having a good time. I think that's the other great thing that for me anyway, not drinking, like it shows me that I don't need that to have a good time. And I know some people that before they go on a date, they want to take a shot, just to sort of loosen up a bit. But then it gets to this weird place where it's like, can I be myself without a drink, because I'm so used to, loosening up when I go out to party, when I go out for a date, whatever, like I need to have a drink. Then you get to a kind of a strange place where you ask yourself, well, like, who am I without alcohol? I'm not sure because I, usually drink when I go out or do these things. But it's kind of nice to be self-assured and to know that you don't necessarily need that.
What do you say to someone who, maybe your friends at this point know you don't drink, but in the beginning when you first met them, or maybe you run into some new people and they are all kind of doing shots or whatever, and they kind of say, here's a shot, take it. And then if you say no, and they kind of have a response to you and they say, well, why not? Or whatever it is, what kind of responses do you usually have for them?
I mean, I guess it depends on the situation. Cause sometimes people ask me that and we're at like a, I don't know, loud bar or something. And it's not like the place for like a, hey, you. Yeah, exactly. Well, it kind of started, anyways.
Started back 1844 and, exactly, should I give you the history or what?
Yeah. That all started when I was born. No. Yeah, it depends on the situation. But kind of to your earlier point, you were talking about like people ask you why you don't drink and you say it's for religious reasons. Sometimes I say that, but I think kind of even for me, more true than that is it's a personal decision, like, I mean, of course, like my religion, guides me. But in many different ways, like I've certainly strayed from the path and I've had to learn some lessons myself. And for me, like the personal choice not to drink, like realizing, okay, this is better for me. This is, like the right path. I understand the wisdom in it. That's when things really clicked for me. So that's my answer.
I mean, that's perfect. I mean, do you guys see this? This is the answer we need to have. It's like personal. He said it himself. It's a personal choice. It's a personal identity. And then I think that's really what's important here is that we're always giving, including myself, always excuses as to why we don't drink. It's not our own personal thing. We always have to kind of blame it on other people or blame it on other situations. It's my religion, or it's my mom doesn't, or my grandma says it's bad for me, or whatever it is. It's like it's hard for us to take accountability. But once we do, and we've done it for many other things, like when we do say it's for our own reason, it feels like we feel more confident in ourselves. We feel stronger in our own beliefs and we feel more grounded. And when we leave that setting, we feel like, damn, I actually did something that I myself wanted to do. So I think it's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also, have been trying to go to sleep earlier and I'll joke about it. I'm like, sorry guys, I'm a grandpa now. I got past my bedtime, my teen's having a party this weekend. I'm going to be gone by like 10 PM.
I'm going to lock the door. He's not leaving.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, kind of, shifting. I like that. Shifting to more sort of practical advice. One thing that helps me when I'm sort of struggling with something, or I know that I have this intention, but sometimes I don't always follow it, is I like to sort of remind myself, I have a practice where I meditate and pray daily. And in that practice, I try to include some just like sort of, I don't know, one-on-one time with myself, with my creator, with whoever. I just sort of put my intention out there. I say, okay, so I'm reminding myself today, like I want to stay steadfast. I want to do these things. I want to not do these things, whatever it may be. And here's why, here's the reason why. And sort of setting that daily intention. Interestingly, it's backed by research. There's this thing called inoculation theory. It was this research by Dr. William McGuire at Yale back in the 60s and 70s. And he would study people that, like they were in an environment where one of their beliefs was sort of being attempted to be changed. And, certainly that could be, I have a belief that I, for example, don't want to drink. I go to a bar, people are trying to change that belief. Like, come on, whatever. Yeah. So he showed in his research that if you, before you go into that situation, if you start by sort of, reminding yourself, okay, this is my belief. This is why I don't want to do this. Just sort of set that intention. If you're going out, with friends, you can sort of do it ahead of time just to sort of get yourself in that headspace. And then that way you anticipate, the sort of, challenge or the, come on, whatever, whatever it may be, that it's coming and you're ready for it. And he shows that, in his research that it actually prevents people from compromising on their values.
I mean, it's tough. Always like when you get in trouble with the principal or something back in the day, I go home and I'm like in the front of the mirror. This is what I'm going to say. This is how I'm going to do it. You're going to say these 3 things, Mattine. Don't, you're not a baby. You got this, and then you walk up, you open the door, you're like shaking and you're like, I did it. It's my fault. I'm so sorry.
How often did you get in trouble with the principal?
Many times. Many times. I didn't do it. If you're watching, I didn't do it. But it's like, that's the thing, right? It's like, and you said it again, this guy is talking about it. What was the doctor?
Dr. William McGuire.
Dr. William, he's like, why'd you call me the guy? But yeah, doctor is telling us.
He might be dead, unfortunately. So I don't think he's going to say this.
And so I think it's like, again, it plays on this thing of you don't need to justify your values to be accepted. You don't need to, explain yourself. Just go in there with your true intentions, and people will start recognizing that, and they'll respect it. They really, really will respect it. And you just need to stop over explaining. I think that's a lot of things that we do is just like, oh, this happened, but let me tell you this, let me tell you that, I'll tell you more next time.
Right.
Like just plain and simple. This is how I am, and boom, call it a day.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think like all things, there's a ton of things that like in life, are uncomfortable. And once you do it, you're like, oh, okay, that wasn't that bad. I mean, I can think of so many examples. Like, I don't know, I used to be scared of roller coasters. And then I was like, oh, this is actually pretty fun. Or like asking a girl out, I'm all sort of worried about it. And then I do it. I'm like, okay, this wasn't that bad. And I think the same thing is true here. It just like the gym, practice makes perfect. You like try it once and maybe, the first time goes okay. And like, you just get used to it, and, like, I don't know, I've told so many people I don't drink. I don't really even think about it. I have no problem going out with friends because I know that, I'll be okay. I can still have a good time. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that you do it so many times, you don't even think about it, at a certain point. Well, Hopefully that was helpful, Brianna. We covered a few things today. We talked about, how so many people feel this way, sort of these patterns are shifting as far as different habits young people have. We talked about starting with yourself, the idea that we set this intention, we independently investigate what we want out of our life, what we want our habits to be, not just blindly follow, the practices around us. And then we talked about sort of setting up your environment, like how to talk to friends about it, how to change the hangout location, perhaps, how to have this inoculation theory set, your intention before you go into the environment. That way it's easier, it's actually research backed. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that was helpful, Brianna. And thanks everyone for listening. For those that don't know, this is a very young podcast. We could certainly use your help. If you like this video, if you can think of a friend that maybe would enjoy it, please send it to them. Also, subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff is helpful. But yeah, we're a very young podcast, and we certainly appreciate your help getting off the ground. And also, if you want to write in, there's a link in the description of this podcast. You can write in, and we'll talk about your topic on the show.
Yeah, thanks for joining in and giving up your time to hear us. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.